What really happened at the Battle of the Little Bighorn? Known as Custer's Last Stand, the Battle of the Little Bighorn was the bloodiest clash of the Sioux Wars and a devastating defeat for the U.S. Army. On June 25, 1876, under skies filled with smoke, gunfire, and arrows, Colonel George Armstrong Custer, led 210 men of the U.S. 7th Cavalry into battle against thousands of Lakota Sioux and Northern Cheyenne warriors along Montana's Little Bighorn River. The encounter was part of the broader Sioux Wars conflicts driven by U.S. expansion into indigenous territory. Within an hour, the Native American forces had surrounded and wiped out Custer's command. The battle became mythologized as Custer's Last Stand, but in reality the outmatched cavalry had little hope of survival. Custer's inauspicious beginnings, born in Ohio in 1839, George Armstrong Custer started out as a grammar school teacher. He entered West Point in 1857, graduating last in his class in 1861. Despite his poor academic record, Custer distinguished himself in the Civil War. He fought in major battles like Bull Run and Gettysburg, rising quickly to the rank of Major General. Known for his bravery, he led from the front and reportedly had 11 horses shot from under him, but was only wounded once. In 1864, he married Elizabeth Libby Bacon. 2 years later, he was appointed lieutenant colonel of the 7th Cavalry and sent to Kansas to fight in the Plains Indian Wars. The Plains Indians' fierce resistance. The Great Plains remained largely unsettled before the Civil War, partly due to its harsh environment and large indigenous population. But after the war, with land in the West growing scarce, the U.S. government began handing out parcels to settlers and railroads, encroaching on tribal lands. As buffalo herds central to Plains tribes' survival were slaughtered by railroad companies and sport hunters, native resistance hardened. The killing of buffalo was seen not only as economic destruction, but cultural genocide. Raids against settlers and rail workers intensified. By the time Custer arrived in 1866, open conflict between the U.S. Army and Plains tribes was well underway. Custer's court-martial and returned Custer's first campaign involved working under General Winfield's Hancock in a show-of-force mission meant to intimidate the tribes. After the mission, he deserted his post to rejoin his wife and was court-martialed in 1867, suspended for a year without pay or rank. Despite his fall from grace, Custer returned to duty in 1868 to lead a brutal attack on a Cheyenne village under Chief Black Kettle, earning a reputation for ruthlessness. But fighting native warriors was unlike battling Confederate troops. The indigenous fighters were highly mobile, knew the terrain, and rarely fought conventionally. First encounters with Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. Custer first encountered Lakota resistance in 1873 while protecting a railroad survey. Among the defenders were Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, two figures who would shape his fate at Little Bighorn. A treaty signed in 1868 had designated the Black Hills in South Dakota as Sioux land. But after gold was discovered there in 1874, the government reneged, sending Custer to escort miners and later to remove indigenous inhabitants. When the deadline to vacate passed in 1876, many Native Americans left their reservations and joined Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse's growing camp in Montana. Lead up to the battle? The U.S. military organized a three-pronged operation. Custer's 7th Cavalry, Terry's infantry, and Crook's forces would converge on the native encampment. Custer advanced ahead after scouts found a trail to Little Bighorn Valley. Upon spotting Sitting Bull's camp on June 25th, Custer abandoned the plan to wait and launched a surprise attack, fearing his position had been discovered. He split his force of over 600 men into 4 groups. Reno attacked from the south but quickly retreated in disarray. Benteen, ordered to bring supplies and reinforcements, stayed to support Reno instead of pressing forward. Custer, with just 210 men, charged from the north alone. Custer's last stand, a massacre. What happened next is still debated. What is clear is that Custer's detachment was overwhelmed. Despite hearing heavy gunfire, neither Reno nor Benteen came to his aid. Custer's troops, outgunned and outnumbered, were likely overrun in chaotic fighting. Most carried single-shot Springfield carbines and revolvers, while native warriors used faster, repeating rifles along with bows and arrows. Discipline collapsed. Men fled, dismounted, and were quickly killed. Custer's death and aftermath. Custer was killed alongside his brother, nephew, and every soldier in his immediate command. Though the Sioux and Cheyenne briefly celebrated their victory, it triggered a harsh U.S. response. Shocked Americans, many celebrating the nation's centennial, demanded vengeance. Crazy Horse surrendered in 1877 and was killed in captivity. Custer's mythic legacy, the Battle of the Little Bighorn, remains a subject of intense scrutiny. Others argue he believed reinforcements were close and underestimated native strength. Custer's body was reburied at West Point, and a battlefield memorial was erected in 1881 with markers where soldiers fell. Thanks to her efforts, Custer's last stand remains one of the most iconic, if contentious, moments in American history.